Welcome. Actually, let me address the Colorado fans first. The ones that are in the comment section of this article and also the ones that are in my mentions on Twitter. Relax, okay? Just relax. You guys have been following recruiting for 10 minutes, all right? There's no bias against Colorado. There's no bias against the fans. Actually, we love Colorado. Our ratio of Buffs coverage to the rest of the country is probably the best of any recruiting network out there. So go ahead right now and smash that follow button because we are going to be talking Colorado recruiting throughout the entire offseason. There's no bias here, baby. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and we're going to do a whole show today. On3 unveiled their final 2023 rankings on Tuesday. We heavily prioritized the senior seasons of these guys in our evaluation process, and this has proven to be among the more productive evaluation points over the course of a high school prospect's career. Biggest storyline with our new rankings is a new #1 prospect. Tennessee QB signee Nico Iamaleava narrowly beats Alabama edge signee Keon Keeley for the top spot. Former #1 Arch Manning, quarterback headed to Texas, drops to #3. Here's a rundown of the final 32 5-stars here on On3. Look at 32 through 17. At 32, you see Eugene Wilson fits in. He's a new 5-star signee headed to the Florida Gators. At 31, Nicholas Harbor remains uncommitted, unsigned, along with Deuce Robinson at 23. Moving to 16 through 1. Very well represented by the SEC here. 3 Alabama signees, 3 OU signees, 2 Georgia, 2 LSU. Top 16 is just dominated by SEC programs. And there you see it, Nico sitting there at #1. All right, let's bring on national recruiting analyst Sam Spiegelman. Sam, the rankings are final. I want to see who were some of your favorites from this cycle. Let's flash the graphic. See, you got 2 quarterbacks at the top. Why do you have Arch Manning and Jackson Arnold as your 2 favorites for the 2023 class?
Well, one is going to Texas, the other is going to Oklahoma, and I have a feeling we're going to be talking about the 2 of these 5-star quarterbacks. Like you mentioned, it's a fantastic 2023 class of quarterbacks at that position, the most premium position on the field, Josh. Let's talk about Arch first, the first family of football. We know that. Let's talk about his senior season. We put a tremendous amount of value on their senior season. Arch went 32 touchdowns without an interception. From a career perspective, 115 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, finishes as Newman's school leader in passing yardage, total touchdowns, passing touchdowns. These are records set by his uncles. These are not Uncle Rob and Ryan. This is Uncle Peyton and Uncle Eli. A lot of the conversation surrounding Arch and the future Texas quarterback is that he plays at the 2A level in Louisiana. Well, for context, it's the same level as Derek Stingley Jr., now the starting cornerback of the Houston Texans, and Devontae Smith, who has the Eagles playing in the second round of the NFL playoffs this weekend, also won a Heisman Trophy at Alabama. So I think when you look from the big picture of what Arch has done in the context, advanced to the state semifinals 4 times in Newman's history, 120 years, Arch has brought them twice. Just to say that he hasn't accomplished anything is absolutely ludicrous. He's one of the more accomplished, decorated quarterbacks ever, and if you take DNA out of it, he's still impressive, and you have to consider that he comes from the first family of football. And real quickly on the other quarterback there, Jackson Arnold, the Gatorade Player of the Year. This is a really incredible story. He started his first game as a backup in the state championship. They got blown out, but the rest is history. He bounced back and brought Geyer back to the state title a year ago. Largely was a game manager, shouldered the workload on offense, but then we saw what it turned into this year. We talked about a Gatorade Player of the Year, orchestrated arguably the most explosive offense at the high school football level. Over the last 2 years, he has a 28-3 record, 7,000 yards passing, 67 touchdowns, 8 picks, another 1,600 yards and 36 touchdowns rushing. Jackson Arnold is going to instantly compete for the job in Norman, and we're going to be talking about Arch Manning at Texas and Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma for the next 3 or 4 years for sure.
Absolutely. And Sam, you've been watching these guys. Both of these recruits hit the national scene really after their freshman year. You've been watching each of them for 3 to 4 years apiece. So what I ask you next really isn't fair to you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. if you were drafting a college program, this is just a hypothetical, if you were drafting a college program, which quarterback would you surround your franchise around? Arch Manning or Jackson Arnold?
Wow. Yeah, that is an unfair question. I would love to sit this one out.
Answer it.
Here is how I've rationalized this over the last couple of months, especially seeing both of them a couple of times as seniors. If I was to draft a quarterback and develop him and be the centerpiece of my franchise, it's Arch Manning. I'm not even second guessing that. I'm feeling comfortable before the pick and after. You give me one game, with a college football playoff game,
Sam.
championship game, I'm taking Jackson Arnold. I think he's the best gamer in the country. How's that for a win?
All right. I know. It's like picking your favorite kid. You can't do it. But you picked them both. All right. Tell me about Zalance Heard.
Yeah, incredible story here. Another underclassman that's been an impact varsity player. Began his prep career along the defensive line at Bastrop High School. Then he moved over to right tackle when he transferred to Neville, which is a powerhouse in North Louisiana. As a senior, he played left tackle. That started in the spring. I got to see his spring game. He was light on his feet. For 6'6" and 300 pounds, he's dancing around and knocking guys over. He gets to the second level in the run game. When he drops back into pass sets, he's pancaking kids on the ground. He's just so overly strong, and he's played 3 different positions in as many years. He had a dominant showing at LSU camp over the summer in front of our national team. He did it again at the Under Armour game. And now he's going to go to LSU, and he's going to be a right tackle at first. Maybe he'll play inside against an all-SEC freshman, Will Campbell, who he played next to in high school. It's just absolutely unreal to see Zalance Heard, the way he started D-line, is now projectable, first or second round pick on the offensive tackle position, a premium spot. I think the future is through the roof for this kid.
Absolute monster. And then we got Peyton Bowen, Notre Dame signee. Oregon signee. Oklahoma signee.
Again, just like Jackson, comes from the same high school program, one of the more decorated programs in the country in Dallas. But Peyton Bowen, the impact that one high school football recruit has had on 3 different phases of the football. We talked about Jackson Arnold and Geyer's run to the state title 2 years ago. Well, their best offensive player, not named Jackson Arnold, was Peyton Bowen, who was running the ball and catching passes out of the backfield. For 3 years, he's been absolutely insane playing safety. I think he can also project to nickel. He can also line up at corner if you ask him to. 200-plus tackles, 12 picks, and 23 pass breakups the last 3 seasons at Geyer. And then we talk about this a bunch, Josh, but I think it can't go understated. He's got 8 returns on kickoffs and punts the past 2 years. He impacts the game every time he is on the field. And for a safety, for a nickel, for a DB, for whatever you want to call Peyton Bowen, he's an impact player. He breaks games open, and he's someone I see Brent Venables sticking right into the Oklahoma secondary.
Yeah, the true 5 stars find a way to make an impact no matter what it is, whether it be offense, defense, special teams, sometimes all 3. Now we look at Suntarine Perkins. He's another one that can make an impact on both sides of the ball. Now he's going to Ole Miss as a linebacker, correct?
That's correct, and he's had a really unique recruitment. I got to see him in his spring game going into his sophomore or junior year, and he kind of did exactly what he just did in the state championship game, where he piled up 300-plus yards, 4 touchdowns, and as a senior, gets a fourth-quarter interception and then the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter. Absolutely brilliant career at Raleigh in small-town Mississippi. For his career, 5,000 all-purpose yards. In the Alabama-Mississippi game, 10 tackles, 3 for loss. This is a guy that Pete Golding, Alabama's former defensive coordinator, thought was arguably the best defensive player in the country. Lane Kiffin, though, was the closer here in his recruitment, held on to Mississippi's best player. Again, this is what happens when you talk about 5-star players. I think he goes to Oxford. I think they find a role for him in the defensive front 7. He can cover the run. He can drop back into coverage, and he's a force getting after the quarterback. And there's nothing he cannot do. And for a team that wants to make a run in the SEC, you need players like Suntarine Perkins to do that.
All right, let's put rankings talk aside for a second. There's been a major development to a big-time recruit in the 2023 class. 4-star quarterback Jaden Rashada out of California has requested his release. It happened on Tuesday evening, so just about 2 days ago, he requested his release from the University of Florida in his NLI, which he signed during the early period. Sam, explain how we got here with Jaden Rashada.
Yeah, what a wild, nonstop, ever-turning recruitment. Let's go back to the summer when this really started to heat up. June 26th, he commits to the U. Florida, LSU, and definitely Ole Miss were all, front and center in Jaden's recruitment. In November, he flips from the U to Florida, an in-state flip for a kid from North California. A little bit unprecedented mid-November. Early signing period gets here in December 21st. That decision is delayed by Jaden Rashada. Eventually, though, he does ink with the Gators. He shows up to Under Armour a few days later in Orlando. But January 8th, he does not report to campus with all the other mid-year enrollees that are set to, get their lockers, get their dorm rooms, and start preparing for the next spring football in Gainesville. Mm-hmm. And then January 17th, earlier this week, he files for release from his NLI from the Gators, which brings us to now the 19th. Josh, what are you hearing the latest on this quarterback, Jaden Rashada?
So Rashada officially has not received his release yet, but I'm told that even though it's still pending, there's a stipulation where he's allowed to be recruited. Now, we'll see what happens when the release comes. I mean, there are some clauses Florida could put in there, like he can't play, he has to sit out a year, but I doubt that happens. So until he gets his full release, we're kind of still in limbo, but that is expected to come. So what I'm hearing is that he's going to likely stay out west. And right now it's a Pac-12 battle. Source tells me that Arizona State, Washington, Cal, and Colorado are kind of the four main teams. Maybe Cal right now, early on, is thought to be the team to beat. But we'll see what happens here. I mean, it goes from an in-state Florida battle to a West Coast battle. Who do you like in this one, Sam?
Yeah, I've kind of heard the same string of teams mentioned, and I think you're right about Cal being just a local team that, with all this recruitment wildness for a kid from California going out to Florida, maybe staying in Berkeley sounds pretty safe and the right thing to do, but I'd also keep an eye here for Arizona State. We all know that Kenny Dillingham recruited him when he was the OC at Oregon. And again, that's keeping the West Coast theme out there. But yeah, I've heard a lot of buzz about Cal and a little bit about Washington and Arizona State as well.
Yeah, I mean, Washington with Michael Penix, very exciting offense that they have out there. And then you can't count out Colorado right now. I mean, Deion's going to try to make a splash. And he's got Shedeur there. And, it could be good for Rashada to maybe sit out a year, let all this calm down, let Shedeur have the stage, and then come in after him. So we'll see what happens here. As far as a timeline for a decision, Sam, February 1st is signing day, right? But is that the day that he has to sign?
No, we've seen recruitments go way past February. He's going to have to report to any of these colleges, no matter where he chooses, until the summer anyway. And the way that he's been able to, get delays and not enrolling, not, filing release from his NLI, I think this could extend far longer than we expect. Typically this goes into April, maybe even May, but I could see this going from May or June, and I wouldn't be surprised if it took that long.
Yeah, and I think the reason you say that is because at this point, we know Jaden Rashada is no longer going to be an early enrollee. That was the plan at Florida. He was going to enroll early, but for various reasons, that did not happen. He's asked for out of his NLI, and now he's got to make another decision. He technically, he has the window of February 1st to April 1st to sign, but really, since he's not going to enroll till the summer, he could even take it beyond that. I don't want to get ahead of my skis here and start making predictions, but it is possible that we don't get a resolution from Jaden Rashada on February 1st. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, we'll have most of the 2024 quarterback committed by then, and we'll still be trying to figure out where Jaden Rashada will end up in June.
All right, from one saga to another, let's look at four-star cornerback Cormani McClain and what the latest is with him. Nothing really, no. Nothing really this week. But what we do know is that Cormani McClain visited Colorado last week. He said that he was going to sign with somebody on January 15th. That was Sunday. There was no signing. There was no announcement. There was no postponement. There was no word on anything about what Cormani is going to do. So, Sam, I think at this point, we just have to look at where he goes next, or if he takes any more visits. Prior to committing to the Canes, he only took one official visit, and that was to Miami. Now he's gone to Colorado. He still has 3 remaining, and there's a couple weekends left before signing day. So I think the most likely place he could end up visiting is Alabama. But are there any other teams that you're hearing of right now?
It was Alabama and Florida were the other two contenders for Cormani McClain when he was ready to make his decision. We don't know if that interest is still there. A lot of those coaches have shifted. You know, this is what December and January are like in college football. Coaches and coordinators are shifting teams and recruiting you for different teams. That, you know, Carl Scott is recruiting Cormani now for Colorado. So I think you hit it right on the head. If Cormani makes a visit again, that will certainly add a wrinkle to his recruitment. But right now, we only know it's Miami and Colorado, and based on what we've seen, over the past month or so, it feels like all of them's in the Buffs' corner. But yeah, this is a complete unknown. So we'll see if Florida or Alabama does try to get him on campus before February 1st.
All right. So I guess my next question to you, and I was going to answer this as well, but where do you think he ends up landing? And you're saying Colorado right now? You're leaning toward Colorado right now?
I'm leaning toward Colorado. What do you think?
I think with a name like, his name is Cormani Money McClain. With a nickname of Money, I think you have to go with Miami. I mean, John Ruiz sending out these great NIL packages to his signees. So if your nickname is truly Money McClain, you're going to Miami. So we'll see what happens. Final with Cormani.
You got Ruiz in the Canes, and I'll take Dion in the Buffs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little gentleman's bet there. We'll see how that shakes out for us.
Absolutely.
All right. Sam, thank you for joining the Inside Scoop today. I think we covered everything that we needed to. I'll see you back here on Monday.
Yep. See you, Josh.
See ya. And we're back. I'm bringing on JD Piquel, the content king over here at On3 Sports. JD, we're going to talk about quarterbacks and the importance of bringing in an elite quarterback. Here's the top 10 QB signees. Take a look at the top 3. These elite quarterbacks are going to great programs. We don't call them programs. We call them programs that want to be elite programs. So you watch the film. How important are these arms to programs like Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Texas?
I mean, I don't think you can overstate it. You look at the teams that were in the college football playoff this past year, and all of them had great quarterbacks. I mean, Stetson Bennett at Georgia, Max Duggan at TCU, a Heisman finalist, J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. Like, you just go down the list, and the common thread is always the quarterback, the quarterback, the quarterback. Josh, you and I were both at the Personnel Symposium in Nashville this past summer. Bill Polian takes the mic and talks about what you need at receiver, what you need at defensive end, and then he goes, but if you have the right quarterback, it solves the majority of your problems.
And who did he have?
He had Peyton Bowen. Right. So from experience, he's speaking pretty thoroughly there. But no, I mean, all three of these guys can absolutely spin it. You look at these programs, Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee. You and I were talking in the office yesterday. All teams that are looking to ascend to that next step.
Level up.
Level up, exactly. With Texas and Oklahoma heading to the SEC here in the not-too-distant future, I think it's extremely important for those teams specifically.
Right. So the other trend when I look at this list is West Coast talent. So JD, you're a West Coast guy.
Yeah.
Why is the West Coast the best coast when it comes to quarterbacks?
There's some bias there. I mean, if you want to get conceptual with it, the weather's good year-round. So, I mean, you can go out and spin it the same you can in December as you can in August. But I think some of it has to do with the 7-on-7 culture is really emphasized there as well as it is in Texas and, other places in the Southeast. So is there, a special ingredient on the West Coast? I don't know. I mean, like I said, from a bias standpoint, there's a lot of really great programs there that have a history of putting out great quarterbacks, like the Mater Days, the St. John Boscos. I mean, Long Beach Poly even has put out a lot of great talent. But as a whole, I think it really does come down to development and what you're doing outside of just your high school.
Vitamin D.
Crucial.
D for development.
D for development, man. Gotta have it.
Dante Moore is headed to UCLA, and at one point he was committed to Oregon. That was a crazy, kind of wild finish there. Oregon bounced back with Austin Novosad, a quarterback that you were very familiar with because he was committed to your alma mater, Baylor.
Yeah.
So you were watching him. What do you think of Oregon's bounce back with Austin Novosad?
Yeah, Austin Novosad, a guy who, whenever it comes to the recruiting side of things, like you can watch the tape, and Charles Power, directing of scouting and rankings for On3, does a phenomenal job at that. I think when I'm looking at his recruiting, I'm looking at who else was after this guy. And Ohio State, a place that has just churned out first-round picks, made a pretty strong push, it sounds like, to get Austin Novosad to be a Buckeye. So for him to eventually end up at Oregon, I think it just speaks to his acumen and his talent, and he's someone who I think is going to have a chance to contribute here pretty early after Bo Nix decides to leave for the NFL.
Not a bad backup plan if you're Oregon. Going from Dante Moore, that's a big blow, but landing in Austin Novosad just shows you how on point Oregon's recruiting staff is and ready for anything. These guys got to compete still, though. Yep. All 10 of these guys, they still got to compete. Nothing is given. How important is it for a program like an Ohio State, who churns out quarterbacks, to find somebody that wants to compete like a Lincoln Kienholz?
I think it's huge. It's in the day and age of player mobility, where if I'm not playing, I can go to the next school right away to run towards competition. You see all these programs across the board that play meaningful games in late December, in January. They all have depth. And I think what we're not talking about enough is Austin Novosad and Lincoln Kienholz, those guys that are probably not going to play day one, they're going to give a look on the scout team. And by a result, they're going to make that first team defense a lot better. I mean, you get better seeing Lincoln Kienholz spin the pill during 7-on-7, during your red zone period. So stuff like that, having that still high caliber of talent where maybe it's a scout team, but you still got a big-time quarterback spinning the rock. I think that's going to pay dividends for them on Saturday.
Yeah, and Ohio State, yes, they recruit elite talent, but you also got to get guys like Kienholz who want to run towards the competition, whereas there's a lot of guys in the transfer portal that are running away from competition.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thanks for joining me, JD. This gives signing day vibes. I know we're 2 weeks away. We're going to be right back here for signing day doing another live show. I'm really excited about it.
Can't wait, man. Appreciate you having me on. I'll see you when the ink dries.
February 1st.
Let's do it.
See ya. Next up, I'm bringing on Charles Power, Director of Scouting and Ranking here at On3, and we are talking Outliers. The final 2023 rankings came out. But I want to talk about Outliers because these are 2023 recruits that On3 ranks higher than the rest of the industry. We got 4 names on here that I want to talk about: Jordan Hall, Yhonzae Pierre, Eugene Wilson, and Jelani McDonald. Charles, let's start at the top with Jordan Hall. What is it about the Georgia signee that we are so high on here at On3?
Yeah, Jordan Hall is one that we've had, I think, in the top 75 for the last 2 years, basically. The Georgia signee, I think, has the best combination of length and first step quickness on the defensive line in this cycle. He's 6'3", 310, has 34.25-inch arms, just lives in the backfield at Jacksonville West Side. And really kind of continued to just parlay what we saw from him as an underclassman all the way through his senior year, and became a top target for a lot of your blue blood programs. And we were able to see him at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio earlier this month, and he was, in our opinion, the best defensive lineman there. Just kind of solidified his spot, in our opinion, as a 5-star prospect in this cycle. And I think he has a lot of disruptive ability and will be like a key cog on Georgia's obviously elite defensive line. So he's kind of just restocking the talent along the front for the Bulldogs.
Up next, we got Alabama signee edge Yhonzae Pierre. Did really well out there in Texas during the All-American Bowl.
Yeah, Yhonzae Pierre, very similar to Jordan Hall. He was one that we just always liked, dating back to his underclassmen video. I think he's also always been top 75 for us. Yhonzae Pierre is when you watch him on his high school film, he is a violent gap shooting defensive end, just defender in general. The collisions in the backfield almost look like car crashes. You kind of feel sorry for the guys he's just blowing up, the ball carriers. Yhonzae Pierre has this very disruptive, explosive skill set, but really kind of wanted to get a look at him as a pass rusher. And I thought he made progress as a senior, but getting him in that all-star setting against top offensive linemen was really instructive in kind of what we were able to see from him as a pass rusher and projecting him there long-term, because he's an edge prospect. Go back and watch the video at the All-American Bowl. There was no edge or pass rusher there who made more plays or gave more trouble to the top offensive lineman. And it was kind of a no-brainer that he was a 5-star when we started to put together the rankings after that week.
Yeah, now we got another newly minted 5-star, Eugene Wilson, signed with the Florida Gators, one of the most electric wide receivers in the country, coming out of the Tampa area.
Yeah, Eugene Wilson really jumped on the radar for us around this time last year. He was a kind of a breakout performer at the Under Armour Miami camp. I think with him, you have to start off with just the coordination. He's just highly coordinated, super fluid, really good ball skills. He's not the tallest guy. He's around, like, I think 5'10 and a half, 5'11", but is able to play a little bigger than that with his ball skills and ability to go up and elevate. And then we were able to see him kind of as a senior early on, just dominant in scrimmages. The first month of the season was awesome. He had an injury as a senior, but came back for the playoffs, and I think that showed some toughness. He could have folded it up and came back, and also has the NFL pedigree. His father, Eugene Wilson, I think won multiple Super Bowls as a starting safety with the Patriots. So there's a lot going for him for sure, and I think he was one that was kind of in the mix for us for that final 5-star, and we decided to roll the dice on Eugene Wilson.
He's an exciting player, and so is the last name listed on here, Jelani McDonald, the Swiss Army knife. What did you like about Jelani McDonald to make him an outlier?
Yeah, I remember when we were going through the rankings, I think probably in the summer, he was one that kind of came on our radar, and it was the guy where the more you kept learning about him, the more exciting it was getting, kind of when you peel the layers back. He's around 6'2", 200 pounds. He is a high school quarterback, also plays defense. This guy who has the size and just overall athletic ability, coordination that you really want to see. So then, going into the season, watched him play, thought he was really impressive there as the quarterback and also playing defense at Waco Connolly. But he comes into San Antonio and is playing corner. This is a guy who some schools are recruiting at linebacker.
Yeah.
So we got there and watched him play corner, and he's locking down top receivers. I think to see that was really kind of eye-opening. This is a guy who can play a lot of different positions. I think he's one that you want to get in your program and just kind of see where his body ends up physically from a size perspective. But you have to be really excited about what he could bring. And just from we were kind of contemplating on what position to rank him as. We had him as a linebacker. We moved him back to athlete. I think if you look at his dimensions, Josh, it probably is a lofty comparison for us who have saw him as a high school prospect. But they're really kind of similar to like a Derwin James, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could be just a multi-positional, like Swiss Army knife, like you said, safety, just hybrid defender. So Jelani McDonald, man, he brings a lot to the table. He's one that we were really excited about after seeing him in person.
All right, Charles Power, you put your final stamp on the 2023 class. Now it's time to focus on 2024. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.